That if we're working with someone local, that A, they know where to find us, and B, they know that we'll take care of it because we have to take care of our neighbors. Our website is franklinsprinting.org.
Good Neighbor Talk covers issues you won't hear anywhere else. They're local issues. WGNS, AM, FM, online. Rutherford Issues with Brian Barrett on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and streaming at WGNSradio.com.
Rutherford Issues here on News Radio. WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. You know, they have Sharing Change. That's MTE's charitable foundation. Well, they've donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes right here in our community. MTE serving to make life better since 1936. Our conversation today will be about the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. John Mitchell, the executive director, joins us here in studio today. We're going to talk about the 100 Miles of Hope blood drive, his recent deployment for hurricane relief, and volunteers. So a lot to cover here this morning. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Brian. It's great to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You know, I told you a few things we could talk about, but one thing I might want to mention before I forget, we have our annual Heroes event, and this year our honoree is going to be former Mayor Ernest Burgess.
Oh, wow.
And so we just had secured him to be in that role, and just thought I'd let everybody know more to come. We're putting together our marketing and materials, and you'll see more on that. But he's not only he's a great public servant, but he's been a great community leader. If anybody's ever been around him, he's a very humble person that's very giving.
When will that event take place?
It'll be March the 5th at MTSU.
So that must be brand new news then.
That is, okay. Yeah. And we've actually moved the event this year from a breakfast to a lunch. So it'll be 11:30 to 1 versus 7 a.m. We're going to make a run and see, how people respond to a lunch this year, March the 5th.
And will that, do you have a location for that yet?
Oh, it is. It'll be at the MTSU, the ballroom at the Student Center, Student Union, like it's been for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So
that's becoming a very popular spot to have events. So
it is. It's a great event. Now, if you're ever bringing stuff in and you take that staircase versus the elevator, you get a good workout. But it's a great location. MTSU is a great place. And we do this, of course, while the students are on break. That way, parking is not an issue. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't dare try to do an event when students are on campus, because parking can be an issue when they're there.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of details about the event when we get closer to it, but you must have just recently decided on former Mayor Burgess being the honoree of that.
Yeah, just in the last few weeks, and we've got a philanthropy committee that just met yesterday, and got some great volunteers that are working and excited about putting together a great event this year, March the 5th.
Well, good stuff there. So I'm sure we'll have details on where you can get tickets and go to this event. And again, pretty soon you'll be talking about tickets, and it's a lunch event now. So looking forward to the details there. And speaking of MTSU, I'm very curious to find out how the Blue Raiders fared. I know that we did not fare too well in the football game itself with Western Kentucky, but I'm hoping we did okay in the 100 Miles of Hope blood drive, because Middle Tennessee has had a pretty good track record in terms of the 100 Miles of Hope blood drive over the years.
Oh, definitely so. And, they've, renamed it because, in the football terminology, it used to be 100 miles of, I don't even want to, 100 miles of hate.
It still is.
It still is. Okay. Yeah. So for a positive spin and marketing, it's 100 miles of hope, because this is going to help save lives. And it's my understanding that WKU did squeak out a victory in not only the football game, but in this blood battle, if you will. And it was a real slim victory. I can't remember the exact margin, but it was a really good success for what we did on campus. So September the 25th and 27th, shout out to Charlie Gregory and Ray Wiley over at the MTSU Recreation Center. They continue to do this every year. And through their efforts and donors that came from campus and off campus, there was 553 donors. 242 of those were first-time donors. We collected 451 units of blood and 1,263 potential lives saved through that effort. So, for that reason, it is a great success, and I'm sure you can look forward to us doing it again next year.
Yeah, I know. My daughter, who's about 120 pounds soaking wet, gave blood, and she had to stay a little longer because she got a little woozy when she got up, and she didn't do her due diligence and have a little something to eat beforehand, and so she had to stay a little longer, but they did a good job of making sure that she was okay before she took off, so that was good. They treated her well, she said.
That's good to hear. And if you've never seen it, it's pretty impressive. You take half of one side of that gym complex, and it's all, of course, curtained off, but you have a huge staff there that's doing the intake, a huge staff that, of course, is the phlebotomy staff, but there is people there just to help with, hey, come on over here, there's some pizza available and snacks. It's just an impressive event, and we're kind of the envy of some other chapters to say, how do you do an event that big, and like I said, that's Ray Wiley's leadership. He's been on our board for quite some time. And Gene Baker, our local rep, he puts a lot of time into it as well. So, if you want to set up a blood drive, you can contact, I'll just give you my number because I can forward you to Gene Baker, who's our representative, but John Mitchell, 615-651-3405. We'd love to talk to you about setting up a blood drive or supporting one of our ongoing blood drives because the need is great and ongoing.
Most certainly. And there are opportunities. If you're thinking, gosh, I just never know when the opportunity is there to give blood. We have a fixed site, permanent place where you can do that any day, anytime, really.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. There has been a change. The scheduling is the fixed site is open throughout the whole weekend, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays it is closed. So they're going to maximize weekend presence. But you can come to that site any day besides Tuesday and Wednesday. And if you don't have an appointment, they can see if they can fit you in. But if they can't, they can sit there and walk you through the process, and what would really be beneficial is download the blood donor app, the American Red Cross blood donor app. Once you get that, you're in the system. You'll even get messaging after you give donate blood, as to where your donation is going to support somebody at a certain hospital. It's pretty impressive.
Well, you can give the gift of life and really help out, and if someone wants to give, that app is really pretty easy to really walk you through the whole process if you're a first-time donor especially, right?
Absolutely, and that helps you once you get signed into the app and you put in a zip code, it's going to show you all the available blood drives that day, and maybe within a couple days. So you can do several different search functions. But keep in mind, there's the fixed site, and then there's a lot of sites that Gene Baker, our blood ambassador rep, is out setting up at churches and organizations. And so it's hard to know where those are, but once you get on the app, you can find out with a few clicks.
John Mitchell is our guest today. He is the executive director of the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. Of course, we've talked a lot about blood drives, but that's only a portion of what our local chapter of the American Red Cross does, and you have spent a lot of your time here at the local chapter being deployed to disaster relief. We've actually had our own local disaster with the Reedyville tornado, but you have been to at least 2 hurricane deployments and recently went to Hurricane Idalia. And tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so, it was just about a year from the last time I went with Hurricane Ian, but when I went down approximately 2 weeks ago for 2 weeks, it was eye-opening. I got to see the contrast. Disasters is disasters. Human suffering is what we're there for. But it can look different. In this case, there was wind damage, but a lot of the people we were serving that through our disaster assessment teams had diagnosed their house to be either major damage or destroyed, which gets them in line for our financial assistance. You couldn't tell from the outside. Some of them you could, but some of them it was because flooding had got up 12 inches, maybe 18 inches. If it gets in the electrical system, then that definitely makes it an automatic. But you could be driving down the road, and really some of the biggest signs was seeing somebody's front yard with bags and bags and things that they were throwing away. Whereas sometimes in a hurricane relief like a year ago, you've seen the wind damage and the knocked over buildings, so there was some of that, but the majority of it was flooding in the area that I was serving. I was serving in 2 counties, Levy County and Citrus County. We did have a shelter open, and these things are kind of, every day is different. So for 3 days I was there, we had 5 people in the shelter. And then on the 4th day, and this was over a week and a half after the disaster, no, actually over 2 weeks, that shelter grew to 15 people. So things happen on a different timeline. They had some housing secured, so they weren't in congregate sheltering. They were in a hotel, but once that agreement had fallen short, we did have that shelter open for them to be served. And when you go to a shelter, I think it's important for people to know you have a staff there that is given 24 assistance, usually working with the local, law enforcement people to make sure everything is safe for everybody included. But you'll have a station there for mental health. You'll have a station for health. You'll have a section that is, set up for pets. We're really big now on making sure that if somebody has went through a disaster and their pet is their family member, so to speak, they're included in that shelter presence. And so we have worked real hard to make sure that they don't lose something that can be very comforting in a really tough time.
Yeah. Well, I know that disaster was more of a flooding disaster, and more so than a wind event, and it can be equally or maybe even more destructive than the wind, because a few feet of water just kind of destroys things. So John, appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us, and we'll keep folks updated on all the blood drives and things of that nature, and thanks for all your work. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your time.
John Mitchell with the Red Cross joining us on Rutherford Issues today.
Greetings, friends. This is Lenny Farmer with the Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home in Murfreesboro. If you ever had to deal with the final arrangements of a loved one, funerals are both emotional and financial. You can